Router joinery tear-out is common and frustrating. Understanding why tear-out happens and what you can do about it will help you get the most out of your Leigh jig. Here are 6 effective tips to help you reduce router tear-out. Tear-out happens when you break apart something that's densely bound together. Most wood consists of tightly packed fibers aligned in the same direction. Following the direction of those fibers with your cutter, or cutting with the grain, is the cleanest way to cut wood. However, when making joinery, the way the router attacks the wood will cut through those fibers, which can result in a lifting away or a separating of unsupported fibers. In other words, you can quite literally tear chunks out of the wood. So how do you keep that from happening when you're routing on a Leigh joinery jig? Our first 3 tips are all about considering your tools and materials when planning a project. Tip number 1. Bit selection and maintenance. Dovetail and straight flute router bits have blades on opposite sides of the shank. Because of their small bit diameter, they have a limited hook angle. That's the angle of the tip of the blade when it engages the wood, which leads the spinning bit to essentially scrape through wood grain rather than slice through it like a knife. One way to minimize the tear-out that comes with scraping is to take the time to keep your bits clean and sharp. You can further reduce tear-out on through dovetail pins and box joints by choosing a Leigh spiral upcut bit over a standard straight flute bit. The spiral pairing action eliminates the scraping and makes for a much cleaner cut. Leigh isolock joints and mortise and tenons are made exclusively with spiral upcut bits. Tip number 2. Only route end grain for joinery. Side grain joinery, that's routing a joint at the edges of a board rather than the ends, will guarantee tear-out and produce extremely weak pins and tails. Tip number 3. Remember the adage garbage in, garbage out. Some solid woods are better than others for router joinery. Know your species and how they grow. Tight winter growth rings like pine and cedar and hollow grains like oak tend to tear out more easily. Make sure to follow the tips in this video if you intend on using these popular species. Stay away from plywood for through dovetails, box joints, and mortise and tenons, as the cross grains and thin veneers are very likely to tear out when routing, and the glue used to stick plywood layers together can cause heat buildup on the bit. For half-blind dovetails though, some woodworkers use plywood because the worst part of the tear-out is on the back of the tails, hidden inside the finished joint. Router tear-out commonly happens when the bit enters or exits through the face grain fibers of a board. The next 3 tips focus on how you can support those face grain fibers. Tip number 4. Backer boards. A flush backer board creates an artificial continuation of the back face of the workpiece that resists the lifting of fibers. It's as though the router never exits the face grain. On a Leigh jig, all vertically mounted boards can be backed up with the end grain of a horizontally mounted scrap board. Use backers for box joints and through dovetails and half-blind dovetail tail boards. On single-pass half-blind dovetails, the pin board automatically becomes the backer. For Leigh fixed template jigs mounted on a beam, the beam doubles as a backer board, helping you effectively reduce tear-out. Tip number 5. Climb cutting. Normal routing lifts outside fibers away from the wood. Climb cutting pushes them into the wood, where they'll be supported by the fibers behind them, leaving a smooth surface and clean shoulder. Typically, you route in the opposite direction of the bit's rotation. You control the pace by pushing along the router or router table jig. Climb cutting follows the bit's natural rotation, and the router or router table jig is pulled along. It takes a firm hand to steer, make shallow passes, and only climb cut if you're certain you can safely stay in control. For half-blind dovetail tailboards, start by lightly climb cutting the width of your tailboard and then route normally. Do not climb cut into the end grain of horizontally mounted half-blind dovetail pin boards. There's no advantage to it, and the pull is severe. For tenon routing, start with a series of shallow climb cuts and then route normally. For through dovetail pin boards and all box joint boards, climb cutting can be used if the guide fingers allow the space for it. That won't always be the case. For each opening, climb cut first, then route in on the right side guide finger, climb cut the back, route out through the left side, and then route the waste normally. Tip number 6. Scribe your boards. Scribe the depth of cut line with a marking gauge on vertically mounted boards. This helps reduce tear out at the bottom of the sockets and encourages a clean shoulder by pushing the outside fibers into the wood where they're supported. One thing to keep in mind with scribing is that the lines will show up on the finished piece. However, many woodworkers see this as a mark of the craft and part of the appeal of building your own boxes and furniture. Scribing can be used on box joints, through dovetails, half-blind dovetail tailboards, and tenon boards. Using the tips covered in this video will help you reduce tear out and get the beautiful joinery you're looking for when routing on a Leigh jig. To purchase Leigh bit sets including the spiral upcut bits shown in this video, and for more info about all Leigh woodworking products, please visit leightools.com. Thanks for watching.